Hello, and welcome to After Dinner Conversation. After Dinner Conversation is a collection of short stories across genres meant to draw out deeper conversations. Download After Dinner Conversation short stories, including the ones we are discussing here today. Hello, kitten. At afterdinnerconversation.com or read them on your readers, tablet, e-reader from Amazon, Apple, or wherever ebooks are sold. I am the co-host, Kolby. This is my co-host, Jeremy, as well as my co-host, Ashley. We are today taping our first episode in, and I got it wrong before, it's not Gattaria, it's Gattaria, which means crazy cat lady. So we're going to have cats all over us today, which is kind of the point, which is super fun. And today we're talking about the first story that we're doing, the Patchouli Lost. Jeremy, you want to talk about that, or give us the general idea of the story for those who haven't read it?
General idea of the story, from the point of view of our protagonist, who is talking to a girl in an abusive relationship.
I don't even know. Does he have a name? I'm not even sure.
The narrator.
No, he's just
the narrator. It's like Fight Club. He's just the narrator.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And how that interaction goes with a girl in an abusive relationship.
Okay. Fair enough. It's very brief.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works.
To the point. You should have read it already. If you haven't read it,
Yeah.
again, check out Amazon, those other e-reader areas. Read it, hit pause on this, then come back and discuss.
It'll work. This will work better if you've read the story. Otherwise, you're just going to hear us talking about essentially a book you've never read.
Right.
But if you haven't read it, that's okay too. You'll get the gist of it as we talk. So I'm curious, what did you guys think? What likes, dislikes, things that you found interesting? That's it? Okay, we'll go with that. I can start.
You can start.
So one of the things I found interesting is the narrator continually pushes. It's a very conversational, very here's why everything. It's a very low key sort of thing for a very serious conversation, and I think that's meant to make the narrator sound more sympathetic, or more something like approachable or sympathetic. But when you dig into it, I'm not sure the narrator is that great.
Exactly, and it's interesting because the narrator approaches the story almost from a point of view of an anthropologist. He's looking at it, and very much asks the question, I've never met people like this. Somebody in an abusive relationship. So, tell me about it. Which is a little sociopathic.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the word for it. So for those who haven't caught up, I'm going to help Jeremy a little bit with the story. So basically the story is this woman, Patchouli is what she's called in the story. She calls the narrator and basically says, hey, I'm locked in my bathroom because my ex-boyfriend is banging on the door and trying to beat me up. The narrator says, I'll come over. Luckily, I guess for the narrator, the boyfriend isn't there anymore. Right. Otherwise, it'd have been a very different story. And then the narrator, there's going to be cat noises everywhere. It's awesome. And then the narrator sort of takes Patchouli under his wing to try and take care of her, but with conditions, right?
Right.
The conditions are you really can't interact with this person anymore. You have to delete his cell phone number, block his phone number.
The crux of the story is he asks her to block his number.
Right.
And
then when she doesn't,
that sets up
cuts her off.
The conflict.
Yes, unwilling to help her once she. Thank you. Once she's unwilling to block
his number,
the narrator is unwilling to help her anymore.
Right.
So to break it down even a little bit further, you have this super complex relationship with this girl and her boyfriend, and she's obviously keeps coming back to him, and it's a complicated situation. And the narrator comes about it very simply. He's like, let me come and get you. Simple. I'm taking you to ice cream. Simple. I'm asking you questions that have straight up answers. Give me answers. Simple. But it's this super complex emotional and psychological an issue that this girl is having. And the narrator comes about it with simple little check boxes okay, get you out of the situation. Let's go get ice cream.
Every problem
Talk
can
to
be
me
solved
about
with
it.
ice cream.
Delete his phone number. And it's not that easy.
It's like an engineer's view on it.
Exactly.
Let's analyze the issue. Here's a solution.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're unwilling to do that solution, I'm unwilling to help you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which again is very sociopathic, and that's the interesting subtext of the story is the narrator basically saying, if you want an abusive relationship, I can do that for you, or I can be controlling for you for Patchouli.
Oh, that's interesting. You're just swapping one person out for another.
Exactly. So that's what he's offering her, and that's why she rejects it.
So one of the interesting notes that I had made was exactly that. So the narrator, in the very first paragraph, him talking about her was a very obsession way that he talked about her, the way that she smelled, the way that she looked. Yeah. So obviously he has an obsession with her.
It's not like a friendship sort of thing, right? Like you don't mention those things if it's just like you're just a person.
Right. Yeah. And then later on he's basically just like the cliche boyfriend when she tells him no, don't come over here, and he disobeys her orders. He comes over to get her anyway. And then later on too, again it was a demand. I do, however, have a request, considerate payment for services rendered. So again, he's also putting demands on her, which is just like what the boyfriend would do. And then he also doesn't respect her opinion because she tried to tell him why I won't block his number after he threatened suicide. It's my right from my perspective to do that. And he doesn't respect her opinion. Is like, no, you need to do it my way. And then he won't even let her speak. And one of the very ends of the story, she starts to respond, but I interrupt her. I just found
so it's like swapping out one controlling relationship for another controlling relationship.
That's what he's offering her.
Exactly. Yeah. So those
it's like a softer kind of control, or like a less like abusive, but in a different kind of abusive way.
Correct. So those were the parts that I
more just emotionally abusive as opposed to physically abusive.
Now that makes sense.
But he comes off as the nice guy. Let me take you to ice cream. I'll
Well, he's
save
also the narrator, right? Which makes him is an intention. An unreliable narrator. Yeah, I think that's the theme of like every story, right? Is an unreliable narrator. Yeah. So I guess one of the things we were talking about some questions with this. So the first one is the narrator says I feel bad just reading off the piece of paper, but this is the easiest way to do it.
You can find these questions too at the end of the stories.
Oh, yeah.
There's a link for these set of questions that we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
And then at the end of this podcast, if chime in your 2 cents too. Write in, hey, this
write
is
in the
what
comments.
Please add your own 2 cents into everything.
Like, you guys are wrong. This is what you should have done. You should have hit her with a brick.
No.
So the narrator, I mean, hit him with the brick.
Okay.
The question is for the narrator in the story says that for true friends, for the big things, they keep their word. Is that true? I feel like, actually, I'm kind of yes and no on that.
The question has complicated answers.
Yeah, like that's
I mean, ideally, no. Personally, I've always felt that we have a certain amount of social capital within a group of friends and acquaintances.
Sure.
Is a way to put it. And the more you violate people's trusts, the more they push you away and cut you out of their lives. So,
what do you mean by that? I need a better explanation than that.
Okay, the more you violate someone's friend's trust.
Like example.
An example, people who always make up stories, always one up you. Like, hey,
yeah.
Friend is like, oh well, that's nice, but I just did this.
Right, but I just skydived with supermodels. Yeah.
So the more, and that's a violation of this social capital of us being friends and being honest and open with each other. And the more you violate that, the more people push you out of their lives.
Because they don't want that kind of interactions.
Yes, they don't want this negative energy.
Okay.
Is a way to put it. And so.
And so you think the
narrator here is taking a pretty drastic measure for what appears to be a first infraction.
So he's seeing it as like a binary, like a black and white, like if you do A, B happens every time, as opposed to just being like, look, like I wish you didn't, but you give friends a chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's not being a friend here because he's not giving her a chance.
Yeah.
My big thing on that too was that it was like can you be a true friend to someone and break your word to them? Well, it wasn't even her idea.
It was his words.
It was
forced it on her.
idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And she was in a weakened place to even say no.
Exactly. So it's like, how can even two friends do those ultimatums to one another?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. There is a part where you need to set your own boundary for what you're willing and unwilling to deal with someone.
Right, because you want to get wrapped up in somebody else's, like, everything.
Exactly. But, I mean, she wasn't even a willing participant. He had to repeat it several times. You will block his number. Promise me. You will block his number.
Yeah.
Promise me.
That's just a Fight Club reference. For sure it is. Say it 3 times. Yeah. I agree. I feel like it is too black and white, right? Yeah. But I think the thing that I wonder about is I think we've all been in that situation where, like, where like somebody drags us into their problem, right? Like they call the first time and say, oh, like my boyfriend's drunk, or my girlfriend is, you know, whatever. And you're like, yeah, no, of course I want to help you. And then like a day later you get another phone call, and a day later you get another phone call. And eventually you're just like, you know, man, like I've got a life too. Like I got my own issues, and I can't just I can't be your all day support network.
And in the frame of the story, it demonstrates what the author's trying to demonstrate about this relationship and about that standing your moral ground.
Okay.
In that sense.
Yeah.
So as a slice of this relationship, it's more of a metaphor for all of these interactions.
Sure.
Instead of how this would really play out in real life. Artistic license.
Yeah, and I understand your point. And I wonder, like, I don't disagree. It
very well spoken.
No, it's a very, like, I think everyone's been in that situation where you get slid into somebody else's drama. But I feel like the narrator in this case is so black and white and so like unforgiving that you're just like, dude, you're kind of being a mean person. All right, so next one. Is the narrator being ethical by totally cutting off all communication with Patchouli? Is he doing it to help her, to help himself?
I think he's being true to his own moral code.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's ethical.
It's a good moral code, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree.
Well, the underlying thing I want to know is when did their relationship start? Obviously, he has this infatuation with her.
Yeah.
There's that moment when they're, I don't want to say intimate, but when they bump heads and they rub noses together. You're like, okay, so they're close enough to be that close a personal
I've given
space?
a lot of foot massages to a lot of people, and none of them meant nothing. You think that's exactly what that is, right? Like that's.
So again, it's how close is their relationship?
Yeah.
And is he needing to draw a line because her drama is just too overwhelming for him, or does he have real emotions for her, like really, really care for her on a deeper level?
I think that's more the point.
Is it a crush on her? Is it not? And so it's like, well, you have to protect yourself if that person's not interested, or you just, again, if it is truly just a friend, you can't watch them go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. I feel like actually, I don't know, maybe. I feel like as a friend, it was the wrong choice, but as someone that he was romantically interested in, like, it's like, because you never want to see the person that you have a crush on, like, not only are you not with me, but you're also with, like, a horrible person.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, and so, I don't know. I understand your point, so.
So I think he did it for both reasons. He both did it because he wanted to help her out. Like, he's been there with her, and now she just needs to stand up on her own 2 feet. And then also, to help himself. I think he did it for both reasons.
So you fault this person for this? You fault the narrator for this?
For cutting her out? No.
It's like almost douchey. It's like it's like 40% douchey.
80%. 80%
douchey. Okay, we'll go 80% douchey.
It really puts his motives into focus.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really tell.
Like there are motives.
He has motives, and
I think that's true.
Because she's not living up to his expectations of her, he's just cutting her off.
I'd like to bring in the other interesting thing. He mentions, I've never been in this situation before where I get to be the hero, when I get to go and save you. Remember, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be this, to do the right thing. And so it's like, is he using her?
Yeah.
And then it's finally
also to perpetuate this internal version of himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, here's who I see myself as, and you're screwing it up by not breaking off. Like, I've got a story in my head, and by you not breaking it off with this abusive guy, you're not continuing the story in my head about being a hero.
Yes.
And therefore, I'm out.
My methods of helping you didn't work, and now I see myself as a failure.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he went into that whole thing. It's like, thank you for that. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And then boom, throws the demand to seal the deal that what I did was right.
Yeah. And I feel like I think you're right. I agree. If it had been a swap out, I think it would have just swapped like one relationship for another. I don't think it would have. I don't know. Maybe it would have stayed a friendship, but it doesn't feel.
It doesn't feel like that. That's not his goal.
No.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. If Patchouli came back to the narrator after another round of abuse, do you think the narrator would again support her? Do you think he should?
I for sure think he would.
I think he would.
Because he kept reaching out.
Yeah.
The narrator clearly says, just trying to be social. I don't know why, but yes.
Yeah. That's
who doesn't like that feeling of feeling like they're helping somebody too? Yeah. It's like, here's a lost cause. Okay, it's been a little bit of a time. Let me try to help you again. Like, I feel like he derives some sort of personal satisfaction from trying to help this person that he obviously deeply cares about.
Right.
So I definitely think that he would come back to her and try to solve her issues for her again, and maybe even put harsher demands.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's interesting though, because the whole point of it is like I'm cutting you off because you won't do what I say. But if you come back a second time, I'll let you back in a second time, which kind of goes against like the first part, right? Like, it's weird. It's like I'll continue to interact with you, but only in the ways that I demand that you interact with me. And every time you knock on the door, so to speak, I'll continue to let you in on my terms, but always only on my terms.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you think he should let her back in?
I think if you're going to be a decent human being, you have to.
Yeah,
like,
but knowing his personality, is he going to have certain regulations for that relationship to work?
Which is why she has not contacted him again.
Yeah.
She recognizes this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's always an interaction on his terms or nothing at all. Yeah. God, it's funny because like there's an abusive guy in this in this story, but the narrator sounds like the worst person in the story.
Well, they parallel. They parallel
that's
each
exactly
other.
It, right?
It's just a different way of demands. It's a different way of basically mentally screwing and mental manipulation, screwing the other person over, thinking you're the nice guy, and then once you feel like you've gained their trust, let me slip in a demand, let me slip in a regulations for our relationship, rules and laws.
Yeah. Wear this, you look good in it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what this actually reminds me of a little bit, and I didn't think about this when I was reading it, was that, what's the movie with the robot that like breaks free and kills the guy in the compound?
We watched it.
You know what I'm talking Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a little bit like that in that the creator views his machine like as an object, but the savior guy who also gets trapped in there also views her as an object. But one views her as a physical machine object, and one views her as a feminine object. And so you end up with two versions of the same objectification.
Right.
Just one feels softer than the other.
Right.
And I feel like it's the same thing with these two characters.
One recognizes her humanity, or her, not humanity, but
version of humanity or whatever, her emulation of humanity. Right, but still objectifies her for it.
Yes.
And so you end up with not a good guy and a bad guy in that movie. You end up with two people that are both treating a person conceptually as an object. Right, and I feel like it's the same thing here, where you've got a harder and a softer version of the same badness. Yeah. Does the narrator have an ethical obligation to call the police? I think probably has a legal obligation, but maybe not an ethical obligation.
Probably yes.
So the fact that she had cell phone service and she's locked in her bathroom and she picks up the
calling
call
the
for him, she's not calling the cops.
Yeah. This is like within the sphere of like appropriate amount of crazy town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't like left the like.
Right, and within the story, there's no physical abuse.
That we've seen or actually witnessed or that the narrator mentions. Yeah.
That would make.
Yeah, if she had a black eye and a bloody nose, like now you've got a very different kind of story. Yeah, I don't know. Because here's the thing, right? Like, if the narrator just called the police, like he both would have been absolved from responsibility in some ways, and have done something like proactive. But instead, he's just like, no, you're not interacting with me in my way. So I'm not going to help you, and I'm not gonna call. Like, I'm not gonna do anything. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
This all sort of leads us up to our last one: is a narrator a good person?
Oh, we forgot question number 4 too.
There's a cat tail.
Yeah, sorry. Is Patchouli in any way responsible if she stops talking to the Cliché?
And Cliché kills himself. Yeah, because in the thing the reason she takes his phone call is because he says, if you don't pick up the phone, I'm going to kill myself. Yeah. I say good riddance. I got to be honest. If the dude, if an abusive guy kills himself because he doesn't get to abuse you anymore, I'm just like, let's just call that a win for humanity.
Have an obligation at all.
No, I agree. But then why does she do it? Because she still likes him? Because she still like thinks like, well, maybe he'll be different this time.
Well, okay, just like the narrator wanted to feel good about himself for helping that girl, she derives the same sense of self.
So she wants to interact with him, but on her terms.
More of in the terms of who doesn't like to feel like a hero? Who doesn't feel like they help save someone?
Wait a minute. So are you saying that the abusive person is just like the narrator, which is just like the abusive boyfriend?
Womp, 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 womp. I'm just saying, though, like, she wanted to feel like she made an impact, helped save someone's life, just like the narrator tried to save her, and she's doing the same thing to Cliché.
I wish I'd done a little more research on abusive relationships, but I believe there is an element to codependency in abusive relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's a way to control somebody by allowing them to feel like they're helping you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, the guy. I don't think he's really going to kill himself. Like I think it's going to be one of those call for help. It's going to be one of those call for help.
It's not
kill
even
yourself.
A call for help. It's just a bluff.
Yeah, I agree.
And then
that's like
if
the last card he's got to play.
And if she doesn't pick up on it, he'll go pry on some other girl. It's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel bad for her. Like I feel like the only way she ever gets out of this is like he gets shiny keyed by like some other girl that he like focuses his life attention on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I don't think he ever goes away. I think he just has to eventually find someone else to like obsess over.
Yeah.
And abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did. Yeah.
Sorry. Now question six.
So
now question 6.
Yeah. Hello, Kitty. Is the narrator a good person? I think it's percentages. That's the way I was thinking of it. Like the abusive guy is like 100% horrible. Like the narrator.
Well, who's to say? We didn't really hear a lot about Cliché.
Right.
I mean, we did make
He's
these
not
generalizations.
Horrible either.
We made these generalizations.
You don't think the narrator, the abusive guy is?
Not 100%. We don't know.
Are you saying? Are you giving me the maybe she was asking for it?
No.
Okay, I don't think that's the way you want to go with this.
Well, okay, so
I'm just saying from what is presented.
That's right.
Yes.
We're only getting it from a guy's perspective that is in love with her anyway.
It's a double narrative.
Yeah, it's a double
unreliable.
It's a double unreliable narrator.
All we get are the assumptions. Does his dad make a certain amount of money? What kind of car does he drive?
Yeah.
Let me guess, he's supposed to take medication. And it's like, hold on, those are all. We haven't actually
That's like
met
second
Cliché.
step removed, unreliable narration. All right, so we don't know what he is, but our hunch is not good.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the narrator.
Again, it probably depends on his motivation. If you look at this from the point of view that he's also looking to control Patchouli, definitely no. If he really is coming from an altruistic place and just trying to help.
But it seems like
he's still not being supportive.
Yeah. Here's the one thing I wonder about, though, and I'm just going to play, there's a phrase devil's advocate, which I always think is a stupid phrase, because it's not like the devil needs an advocate. He's doing fine on his own.
He's a lawyer anyway.
Yeah, he's a lawyer anyway. That's a good point. No, the thing I wonder, though, is like, so let's say I get a flat on the side of the road, and somebody comes to help me change my flat, right? Because I don't know, they're hoping they're going to get a $20 tip, or somebody like helped them out of a jam, and the requirement was they had to pay it forward, or something like that. Like, at the end of the day, my flat got fixed. And so I think there's a motivational side of it, that you judge, but I also think there's a result side of it as well, right? Like sure, you might have been fixing my flat for all the wrong reasons, but the flat is fixed.
Yes.
And so I don't know how you separate those two in the case of the narrator. Like the narrator arguably has not great motivations, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't supportive when a person needed support. In the limited way he was able to.
And in the manipulative way that he was able to.
In the manipulative way he was able to. Yeah. Yeah, that's the issue, right? So what's the verdict on good?
No. In the grand scheme of things, though, the narrator did go and help her.
At potential risk of getting a beat down.
Yeah. Exactly. He slept on her steps.
Waited
for
without telling her that he did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He did try to cheer her.
A little stalkerish.
Tried to cheer her. Oh, hello. Tried to cheer her up with ice cream, but then he immediately after giving her ice cream went deep dive questions that she was obviously very uncomfortable for.
Yeah.
So it's like he tries and it just goes sideways, and he tries and it just goes weird sideways, and I think with good intentions, but. I mean, it's kind of like
it's within the framework of the weird psychosis sort of thing going on.
A little bit, or that like deep crush where you're just kind of like just can't quite control his emotions because he's getting to the tipping point of wanting to control her as well.
Yeah, I know. You're like, I am so excited about this.
By the way, all the cats you see here are up for adoption.
Yeah,
so
including this one licking its butt.
If you're in Tempe, Arizona, come on by. This little guy's up for adoption too. Which
there's all cats everywhere. This is just the one who's found us today.
take this one home with us today.
Yeah,
after, I mean, come on, look at that face.
Okay, so
I feel like the narrator is pretty true to his own code, even though again,
and I think that's an interesting thing as well. Is there's this assumption that ethical is following a set of sort of universal ethics,
right?
And I think ethical can also mean the phrase of
like
consistent within your personal ethics. Like do you change your ethics when it helps or hurts you, or are they consistently in whatever they happen to be?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so what's our? I guess that's our. There's a closing. I don't know yet. I don't have it memorized yet, and there's a cat on it. Hold on.
Not that one. It's.
No, you took the closing sheet.
Sorry.
Where'd the closing sheet go? You're very prepared.
You used it.
It's got. How? You can't blame the cat.
You didn't memorize your own closing.
I didn't memorize my own closing. Yeah, it was here. At any rate, you're listening to After Dinner Conversation. We just got done talking about Patchouli Lost. That short story is available for download on Kindle apps, which is everything now takes a Kindle app, whether it's a Kindle or an e-reader or your phone or your computer. You can download it on Amazon.com. I think it's free actually right now. And our next story next week will be, what is it?
It's the My Fellow Americans.
My Fellow Immortal Americans, about the president giving a very strange speech where it's like a sci-fi thing where time is the currency and money is irrelevant now.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's this question of can people be immortal and can you be rich enough to live forever? So tune in next week to watch that. Definitely try and read it ahead of time before you watch the one next week. It is also available on Amazon. And we'll be back next week at La Gattaria in Tempe, Arizona. Thank you.